I got my start on the internet in the early 2000s, and like many others, one of the first people I came across was Kristen Weston Chandler, or Chris Chan. He was a staple of early internet culture and came to represent the worst the internet had to offer. For nearly 20 years, he was brutally trolled, but it all started here at 14 Branchland Court. This was Chris's home when the trolling started. It's in Ruckersville, a small community outside of Charlottesville, Virginia. Visiting after the arrest, specifically on September 4th, was pretty surreal. I didn't want to stick around too long because I know the family's been through a lot, but one thing I did notice, though, was that Chris's car is still in the driveway while he's in jail. Some on the internet have said that this is evidence that his mother is either lucid enough to live by herself now, or that family lives there. And I was able to see somebody through the back window, but obviously I'm not going to film this. I'm not one of those people. I wasn't able to confirm, but apparently this car also has different license plates because Chris had a specialty plate which read Sonichu. And seeing the house tour in 2009 is what got me interested in the wild life of Chris Chan and his character, Sonichu. As the story goes, he'd been getting trolled since 2007, and two men pretending to be women requested a video tour of his home.
Yeah, it's a bit of a mess. At least I got up run to warm up a pizza, wash dishes.
When it was posted, it went viral and attracted unwanted attention from the health authorities of Greene County. But what made the video go super viral was his pleas to take it down, yelling at the internet to remove it. During his tirade, his father walks in and says he'll chop down the internet. And from that day forward, Bob Chandler became known as the Internet Lumberjack.
Now what's going on?
Dad, will you get out of here?
No, I will not. People telling me that you're about to kill yourself on YouTube.
What?
What are you doing? What is your trouble?
I'm not going to kill myself.
Get away from that TV.
Fine.
Get away from the internet. I'm cutting it down right now.
No! Dad, no!
Yes.
No!
What are you doing?
The home was so dirty thanks to his parents' hoarding and uncleanliness that it burned down in 2014, a few years after Bob Chandler passed away. News came out that Chris plugged the coffee machine into the bathroom outlet, and the door opening and closing so often caused the wires to strip, and firefighters were unable to enter the building because it was so piled high with trash.
Greene County investigators are looking into the cause of a house fire early this morning. It started at about 3 o'clock this morning at a home on Branchland Court. That's in the southern part of the county. We're told the fire started in a first-floor bathroom, but got quickly out of control and eventually shot through the roof.
But really, Chris's personal story begins here in Richmond. After a few altercations with teachers and an autism diagnosis, he was kicked out of elementary school and told to seek out special needs classes. His parents had an old-world mindset that this would mean him being institutionalized, and the memory of lobotomies was still fresh in Bob Chandler's mind. So Chris was homeschooled in the Cloverleaf Lake apartments, where he claims he would watch cranes in the lake. This homeschooling period lasted for at least a year before he went to a nearby middle school, but little is known about his time there. What really interests me is Manchester High. Chris Chan's high school is south of Virginia's capital and was a high point in his life. Until his arrest, he wore his high school ring and would often use their colors and the mascot of the Lancers in his comics. He said that he had a small social circle here, although the ones who would later talk about him usually said they only included him because he seemed helpless and harmless, and he seemed a little bit bewildered and kind of expected them to mother him the whole time. Chris's graduation crushed him emotionally, and he still includes the high school in his Lego sets, and even made a major villain in his comic series named Count Graduan, in reference to how much he hated graduating. Chris's father wanted him to get a higher education, and always had very high hopes for him, so he was enrolled in the Piedmont Virginia Community College, or PVCC, first in business but later in computer drafting and design. Seeking a woman to act as his lover and caretaker, he would loiter in the library with his infamous Love Quest sign, poorly drawn, and expressing his desire for a white woman around his age, STD-free, with a medium to high salary and car. Eventually, the Dean of Corrections confiscated his sign and requested him in her office. This dean, Mary Lee Walsh, became one of his first major villains. In the meeting with her, Mary Lee Walsh said that he would never find a girlfriend like this, and would never find a girlfriend at all if he kept up his actions, and he claimed to have given her a Cursi Hami Ha. This is sort of like a Kamehameha attack meant to bring bad luck, and let's see how terrifying that is when he does it in one of his many videos.
Curse ye,
PVCC later becomes a very central plot point in the Sonic 2 comics. The main role of Mary Lee Walsh in his comics is to make love illegal in Virginia and to generally just mess with his life. He has many run-ins with cops who told him to stop harassing people, who were also an inspiration to portray them as evil in his comics. He calls them jerk-cops, unless, of course, they're arresting gay people in his imaginary city of Quickville, which, of course, has him as mayor. PVCC also appears in his comics as well as an initial for the private villa of corrupted citizens. Chris believes he's being gang-stalked in what he calls the Greene County Conspiracy. PVCC organizes trolling efforts to keep him a virgin, at least in his own headcanon. No Chris Chan pilgrimage is complete without a visit to the Fashion Square Mall. This was where he was first posted to the internet, in a 2004 blog post which called him the Creepy Pacer. He would pace back and forth from around 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. in front of Abercrombie & Fitch before moving over eventually to PacSun. After doing this for possibly weeks or even longer, he approached the cashier inside and made creepy, unwanted moves on her. He'd be banned from the mall quite a few times, but it's seen some of the more noteworthy moments of his life, including the infamous man in the pickle suit. This incident boils down to a woman trolling him and pretending to want to date him. Chris and his father met her at the mall, and when Bob was off ordering spaghetti, a man in a pickle suit emerges from the shadows. Within 10 seconds of flirting with his would-be girlfriend, the pickle man walks off with her, and Chris believes that he was cucked by a pickle, basically. So the whole incident was to make fun of how much he hated pickles. Chris refused to even say the word gay, or to say the word penis, because he thought that saying these words would actually make him gay, so he would say the word pickle as a placeholder. So trolls started sending him pickles, throwing pickles in his yard, and it eventually culminated with this message from the pickle man himself.
Stuck to it. You see, your virginity is my business and mine to control, not yours. Allow me to clue you in on a plan I've had for a while now. You see, I went out at night into the streets of Virginia. There, I found every prostitute and hooker I could find. And do you know what I did? I found each and every one of them, and I told them, I have your mugshot. If you see this man, give him nothing.
Another place visited by many Christorians is the Game Place. It's now a hipster chocolate shop, but at the time, this was the site of one of Chris's most famous outbursts. During his youth, he'd play Pokemon with kids here, and had a sizable social circle, but would also have regular outbursts. The manager, a man named Michael Snyder, banned him after one of these regular incidents, and Chris was furious for years, making dozens of apology videos, intermittent between making Michael Snyder one of the biggest enemies in his comics. These would be interspaced with him trespassing and his parents supporting him all the way, and totally denying or downplaying the fact that he was trespassing on private property. Eventually his mom drove him there, and he walked to take photos of Snyder, supposedly to use for a dartboard. But Snyder claims he was taking photos of a 14-year-old girl, so he called the police. Chris scurried out, and when Snyder tried to block him and tell him to wait for the police, Chris ran him over. His mother fought the police when they arrived and earned the two of them felonies. Bob Chandler died in 2011 and was buried south of Charlottesville. Next to him is a space for Barb when she passes away. I was actually surprised to see all the flowers left on Find a Grave, and to see that they were mostly sweet replies, calling him Lumberjack in a friendly way, but saying that he tried his best and wishing him luck with his LP collections and stamp books in heaven. Even though he had problems, Bob seems to have genuinely done his best for Chris and been a pretty good person. In 2015, Chris walked into Best Buy and maced an employee. At the time, he was protesting the fact that Sonic's arms were changed from yellow to blue, and was going in all the game shops he wasn't already banned from, and either hiding the games or defacing the products. When someone tried to stop him, he sprayed mace on their shirt, earning him another run-in with the law. Fans even claimed that he was cited in Sonic Boom, which referenced overbearing toxic fandoms.
It's almost done. I just gotta finish the arms.
My vulnerable hamstrings.
I'll meet you guys at the theater.
Escape? No. I was just searching for more of that fan fiction of yours. Ooh, son Amy. Spicy.
The End Games was one of the more interesting stops on the trip. Christina, as she'd transitioned at the time, was banned from here in 2018 for outbursts. It's still a very active place. There was a sweet nerdy meetup when I got there, and when I asked the cashier about Chris, he politely corrected me with her proper gender, and he smiled at the local celebrity and even directed me to the famous game place. He reflected about how much he'd been trolled and how sad the whole affair was, and I couldn't help but agreeing with him. This stop here was the address for the Impulse Gay Social Club, which Christina attended quite a few times. Surprisingly, she seemed to have a really good time, even if she was a bit too feelsy for a lot of women's taste. I mention this to bring up her evolving attitudes towards gay people. She began by despising them, and my favorite example of this is when Chris in the comics chased down his two biggest trolls, Clyde Cash and Jack Thaddeus. Rather than be killed by Chris, they're revealed to be a gay couple, so they hold hands and jump down an elevator shaft. Chris actually believes that this was a good end for them, but fans flocked to ship them together. In another comic, Chris cures gayness with his own blood, which has the power of being the straightest blood known to mankind. Central Charlottesville is where you can really trace some of her more recent mental breaks with reality, and it's near some of the government buildings here that you'll find the free speech wall. This was a focal point for the city in the aftermath of the 2017 fascist rallies in town. 3 people died, 2 state troopers when their helicopter crashed, and 1 woman in a terrorist attack. Because of the presence of the free speech wall, people began expressing all sorts of political sentiments there. Christina showed up to advertise the fact that she believes in a dimensional merge, which will cause our world to collide with another universe of what she calls OCs, superheroes, My Little Pony, Sonic characters, cartoons, and Imagination Land. This is one of the first places that we have a real record of her advertising this belief openly, although the last few years have been more about her focusing on this dimensional merge than they have been about her actually focusing on her comics anymore. The Wesley Memorial United Methodist Church is also south of Charlottesville. Christina was banned here after showing up wearing cat ears and a unicorn horn to a memorial for the deaths from the riot that happened not long before. I actually found out quite recently that the woman who was killed in the terrorist attack was a native of Chris's hometown, Ruckersville. Christina began crying and screaming when asked to remove these, and was later asked to just leave the church forever. They said they'd had enough of her outbursts. We've all heard the news of what Christiane did to their mom, so I don't need to go over it. But it's worth noting that they were arrested here in Henrico. Their first plans were to live with family in Richmond until the trial, but when the family found out what Chris had done, they called the state trooper to prevent them from even stepping onto their front lawn. Unable to stay in their car for a night, Christina broke the CPO against contacting her mom and stole the last $750 from her bank in order to pay for a hotel. And alas, this is where Christiane's journey ends. After being placed in the Henrico County Jail for a while, she was brought here and placed in isolation in the Central Virginia Regional Jail. Now, I'm not Ben Shapiro, I'm not qualified to talk about gender and politics. I've probably misgendered Chris and Christina quite a lot because I really grew up with Christiane as this character who was always male in my head. I don't mean anything malicious by doing it in this video. Christiane to me is more of a character. The situation that led here is complicated. Christiane was classed as a female by the Henrico police, but later this changed to male, and the story even made it to Tucker Carlson, who of course spends only a small fraction of the story talking about Chris himself, and chooses to bring out a women's rights expert who's mostly concerned with sending trans women to men's jails, something we can all agree would probably end in brutal daily rapes, especially if it were for someone like Christina or Christiane. Now, I think it's interesting that the reason for this, reclassing from female to male, possibly or more likely has to do with the law in Virginia. You see, in Virginia, women cannot be prosecuted for incest with their mothers, although men can. So the decision to change Christiane's legal gender from female back to male was most likely just to prosecute him for this crime, which was rape. I think everybody can agree with that. But whatever pronouns you want to use, this person does not belong in any jail, male or female. They belong in a mental asylum with proper help. They need medication. They don't need rape. And whether or not this will be the end of the Christiane saga, only time will tell.